Hello, hello. Good morning. Good morning. Cafe Freedom coming to you live from the heart of the Great White North, the heart of the true North, strong and free. I can hear some echo. I wonder where's that coming from? Oh yeah, I forgot that I put some reverb last night trying to practice a country song I discovered from 2016. Good morning, folks. This is essentially pre-recording, but we are live on free speech platforms. We did not include Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook this morning. Basically, I want to be able to um, express myself totally free of censorship right now. And I'll edit before I post these segments on the other mainstream platforms that are basically censorship platforms. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. This is Cafe Freedom on a Monday morning, 9:26 a.m. Very tired, did not sleep, and one of the loyal listeners asked me to guest him on the show. Usually, I book my guest weeks ahead of time, 4, 5, 6 weeks ahead of time. But however, this is a guy who has his own podcast, and I believe he wants a little bit of push as well. So I told him we're gonna do pre-recording because he has a lot of B-rolls of photos and videos that he wants me to share during his trip when he joined the Manitoba Freedom Convoy that just happened this February, as sort of like initially it's supposed to be the anniversary convoy from last year, but things fell apart with many of the leaders of the Freedom Convoy who are seems like very very energized with um, breaking up. Let me just adjust my volume, folks. Sometimes I don't realize how loud I am. Looks like we have some listeners, live listeners. Um, this is the very first time that I am broadcasting on all platforms that are not the usual YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I actually added one secret group on Facebook and one secret account on YouTube. However, it doesn't have any followers. So essentially, I was doing it as a for recording purposes, so that tomorrow I can publish this. Initially, I just want to record it, but I added some channels here because we might be able to capture some live audience, and I can see that there are a few. But treat this as recording, folks, because I have excruciating headache here. Didn't sleep at all last night, but I want to pre-record all of the Cafe Freedom now, because my sleep cycle, usually I'll be sleeping at this time of the day now. Anyways, there is a lot to unpack from last night's episode with the roundtable discussion, the Freedom Roundtable Coast to Coast to Coast. When I am hosting the roundtable, essentially, I want to function as a moderator. So I had to quiet down my own opinions on things because it's not the Cafe Freedom is essentially not for me. It's for all of our panelists, coast to coast to coast. all across Canada. And I have to quiet down my own opinions and my own desire to weigh in. Um, I do a little bit of that, but within reason. I would like to give the airtime mostly for our guest panelists on the show. And that's the intention, is to really wear the hat of a moderator, and all the other opinions that I have, how everything transpired, is I'm going to unpack it here on Cafe Freedom and on my Solo Freedom Fighter Radio, which is essentially only once a week now for Freedom Fighter Radio when I have a solo, because we have three Freedom Fighter Radio broadcasts every week, but two of them usually will be booked with guests, and only one of them every other week will be a solo monologue by yours truly. And it's not that I don't enjoy the monologue, I do, but the monologue, mm, um, the pre-production and the monologue, so that I have something more uh, understandable for all of our listeners to listen to, and more organized thought structure. I can always go just wing it from my heart and from memory of everything that I'm learning, and sometimes that works, and people are getting valuable things when I do that. However, there's no organized sequence um, when I don't plan it out. Anyways, if you can notice, our backdrop has changed. YouTube has actually erased our Freedom Fighter Radio channel, so you won't be able to find YouTube anymore. Freedom Fighter Radio on YouTube is essentially canceled, erased, deleted. So that's fine. Um, Let me just quickly look at Rumble, because I know that the Rumble Live does not um, it does not sync with the dashboard, so I'm not able to see if there are viewers or interaction or comments. So I'm gonna go click right now on the live and see. See. I'm gonna mute it. All right. So at least I'm not. There are no comments there, so I'm okay. We're okay. Let me go back to the dashboard here. So this is Cafe Freedom. It's I'm not gonna give a date because, like I said, this is pre-recorded, and I use this on the upcoming Cafe Freedom episodes. But lucky to those who are happen to catch me online, I'm almost on secret channels right now. It's the only time I don't have the mainstream platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter today. These are all purely Freedom Fighter Radio app, Rumble, Odyssey, and we'll be uploading as soon as I end this recording. I'll be uploading it on Brighteon, BitChute, and uh, just cannot find the time to come around and do the Rofkin yet. And I actually have three new sponsors that I need to compose um, and edit their ads. Haven't done that yet, but that's fine. We are going to find the time to do that. Um, but these next episodes on the Cafe Freedom, I want to unpack everything that how everything transpired on our. Oh, Michelle has joined me today. Let me see. Censorship has never been so refined to be able to cancel simultaneously on so many channels, and to discredit anyone that speaks against the narrative. Yes, Michelle. Well, I would take it as a badge of honor when they do that to us. I'm actually gonna share a new song that I discovered from a YouTuber. Um, I've been I guess because of the influence of the miniseries Yellowstone, not miniseries, full series, uh, streaming series Yellowstone. I started listening to country music as well. I'm a big fan of jazz, but now I just added country music as part of my Apologies. My alarm clock is going off, and I have to walk to go and turn it off over there. So I'm gonna do that while we um, on our intro. Apologies if you can hear the alarm going off. Yes, Michelle, I I scare them. Well, I'm happy that you're able to join me. Are you joining me on? Are you on Rumble or secret YouTube or my private groups on Facebook? I guess. Anyways, I'm gonna unpack my own comments and thoughts on the discussion that happened last night, because I refrained myself from giving my reactions during the roundtable. I want the airtime to be dedicated to all the guests. So this is Cafe Freedom on a Tuesday morning. Oh, sorry, Monday morning. It's oh man, I can't even see the. Oh wow, it's the 20th of March already. Monday morning, March 2023. Let's get this Cafe Freedom started right now. Cafe Freedom on a Monday morning, coming to you live from the heart of the Great White North, the heart of the true North, strong and free. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. We have a new backdrop because our usual backdrop with the Cafe Freedom logo went with the deleted YouTube account. So that backdrop is essentially deleted too. I think I still have the original on my hard drive somewhere. Take a look and find where that is. But the original intent for Cafe Freedom is the light-hearted, relax, kick back, slow pace freedom podcasting where we talk about right side of the brain type news magazine content. So although we will touch on important topics and things that are related to our fight for freedom, which touches politics and social issues and whatnot. Now we'll have a little bit of that in the general, but it's mostly going to be all the other aspect of freedom fighting. We talk about books, we talk about music, we talk about films, we talk about festivals and foodie. That's the idea, anyways. But for this particular episode, in the next two episodes of Cafe Freedom, we are going to unpack every 2 weeks. We have a freedom roundtable from coast to coast to coast, all across Canada, and that will be the main focus on the next episodes, 2 or 3 episodes of Cafe Freedom. And the next roundtable, Freedom Roundtable, Coast to Coast Canada, will be on April 2nd. And for Cafe Freedom, sorry, for Freedom Roundtable, the idea to pursue for that is to also integrate, um, make it a North American show, start integrating our American brothers and sisters into the roundtable, and then eventually a worldwide. But we are still also going to have from time to time um, segments that are exclusively Canadian, segments that are exclusively American. Um, and need coffee. Well, I just had 2 cups of coffee, Michelle. So if I had a little bit too much, by the way, yeah. So let me finish that sentence. Usually, I cut myself mid sentence. I apologize for doing that. Sometimes my brain goes, 90 RPM per second. Um, see now I forgot what I'm about to say. Yeah. So if I have too much coffee, I get a headache. And it's the opposite. It's the opposite effect. Instead of waking me up, it actually makes me fall asleep. If I have, there's a certain threshold. If I pass that threshold, then coffee doesn't affect me as a wake up agent. It affects me as a sleeping uh, chemical. I kind of like my background. It's a cafe background. As you can see, where is it? The graphic coffee here. They have little steams coming out of the coffee, and yeah, that will work for now until I am able to find the time to um, compose another backdrop with the logo, with the animated logo. Like I like I said, this is not structured. It's sort of a hangout. Cafe Freedom every morning, every other morning, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Although we're live right now, a lot of our viewers are expecting us to go live on Facebook, but I choose not to do that today because we are going to try and entice our audience from Facebook to start tuning in here on our free speech platforms, where what we're going to do is cut, little clips and post it on Facebook and entice them to watch the entire episode here on Rumble, on BitChute, Odyssey, Gab TV. Gab TV kind of got frozen. It says that we reached the limit of the free account. I'm trying to get the paid subscription, but I we got into a road bump because they only accept payments of certain types like Gab Pay. But when you apply for Gab Pay, it's only available for Americans. So, and anyways, so my mom sent me a bunch of instant coffee, which is coffee, but not really. It's a healthy coffee. Um, the pouch is over there. I don't want to walk and leave the camera empty here. Um, it's just 2 meters away from me, but it's over there at the dining table. But essentially, it's a packet of about 20 little packets. A pack, like a Ziploc bag. Um, one of them, actually, I have one over here. Let me. Sorry, I'm gonna stand up for a second. Shoot. I apologize that I had to do that. My mom sent me this from the Philippines, and initially, I'm not big fan of. My mom's a nutritionist, and she keeps on preaching all this natural stuff on me, which I don't have anything against, but I don't have the time to think about all the pills and all of these medicinal things that she wants me to take. I keep on forgetting them. And also, initially, I had this reservation um, about the validity of the claim on many of these health products that she wants me to take. And also, because my mom's poor and I'm not that wealthy either, I ask her not to spend any more money on these things because she cannot afford it. But mom's parents are like sacrificially trying to put their children first, and I got that from my mom too. I'm the same for my kid, and um, so she's sending when my wife and daughter went to the Philippines. She sent me 3 boxes of this, and there's 2 pouch of something else. It's called Green Miracle Herbal Coffee. Well, initially, I didn't want to take it seriously. I'll open one and show you how it looks like inside. Because my mom is almost 80 years old. She's 67. Sorry, 76. What am I saying? She's 76 years old. And my thoughts were every time I call my mom on the phone, she tells me about all of the seminars she attends and all of these health seminars and product presentation that she gets invited to. And my feeling was because she's a senior, I felt like a lot of these, vulture salespeople are trying to take advantage of older people. And so I tried to caution her a lot because I know she's a senior and there's so many predators out there trying to um, hoax the seniors. So when she sent me some of this stuff the last time she did, I was not really taking it seriously, but I would take it for the sake that yeah, I don't want her to feel like I'm ignoring her or ignoring her recommendations and her medical advice. But in my mind, I was like, I really don't believe on these things, but I will take it anyways because I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings. And she sends me a bottle of pills of um, supplement pills and vitamins and all these. I'll take them. I don't because maybe because I have a negative attitude towards it. I really don't feel all the benefits. I'll take them anyways because I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings. But this particular coffee, it's a little different story. So that's how it looks like inside these boxes. She sent me this, and I didn't care much about it because I thought it didn't taste as sweet as I wanted. And so she said, "Well, just to put two packets in one coffee mug because my coffee mug is pretty big, and this is a Filipino size. In the Philippines, you have little coffee mugs. So I started putting two packets in one mug, and then it tastes okay. It tastes fine actually. It tastes delicious. And because I'm lazy, instead of like doing my coffee, my cream, and then my sugar, and then pour hot water, you just take this, dump it in, put hot water, ta-da! You don't need to kind of measure how much of sugar and ratioing what you put into coffee. So because of laziness, I started taking this. But the biggest difference that I noticed was when I'm taking regular coffee, which is I think what we have here is Nescafe. It's instant coffee, but it's not the one that you put on coffee makers. It's just the one that you stir with a spoon and put in a mug, stir with spoon, we pour hot water in. Um, gives me chronic burping. I'm coffee dependent. I'm caffeine dependent. I'm addicted to coffee. But every time I take the regular coffee, I find myself to be chronically or severely burping the whole time, and sometimes in the entire show. And today I only have water with me because I already had 2 cups earlier. But normally I'll have coffee and during the show, whether it's Cafe Freedom or Freedom Fighter Radio at night, and it just have been part of my routine, and I don't feel comfortable without coffee during the live show. But the side effect of having too much of the regular coffee makes me burp nonstop, make me gassy and burp so much, and it kind of interfere in my monologues. After starting taking these green miracle herbal coffees, it didn't totally take away the burping. I think the burping and the gas and creating gas is not only the coffee, but my diet and my lack of sleep and my unhealthy habits are causing me to be gassy. But I would say that it diminished my burping. I would, if I can put a number to it, I would say about 80% of my burping has been reduced since I started taking this coffee. So I might end up. These were gifts that my mom, she sent me 3 boxes of this, and one box has about 15 packets, but two is just one mug for me because my mug's pretty big. So it goes fast. And she also sent me 2 bags. But when I finish this, I might end up ordering some more from my mom. But if this really yields a lot of health benefit, I'm thinking of offering it to all of our listeners who will be signing up on our Patreon. I'll be sending you a free packet in the mail for you to try. But first, I've got to order, ship it in to Canada. And see, I don't have vendor's license of any sort. So, and also, I know the Alex Jones model of Freedom Podcasting. He sells his own inventory of his products. I thought about doing that, but I felt like I don't have the energy or the time to manage inventory of products that I sell myself. Although I don't have any problem with that kind of business model, I'm open to that idea. It's just that first of all, if I'm gonna do that, I'll carry items that are non-perishable, like hats and shirts and headphones, whatever. The only problem with that idea is that I need a bigger capital working capital to replenish the inventory and sell more items. But the energy of my energy is so limited. I felt like I don't have the energy and the time to manage, creating a store and managing inventory for a store that I sell to raise fund for our to fund our truth here. Instead, I uh, I thought that what we are going to do on the Cafe Freedom and Freedom Fighter Radio platform is that we're going to promote other people's businesses as an ad space. We're just going to sell ad space on the show, and we have a lot of companies trying us out right now. Hopefully, that they will sign in as clients. We only have a couple of clients that are signed in, paying clients at the moment for our advertising. But that's easier for me than managing my own inventory. Having said that, there's a lot of people telling me that if you sell your own inventory on your platform, you're gonna make more than double of profit and raise funds faster. It's just that that's another thing to think about and take care of. If I have a team, someday in the future when we have a Freedom Fighter Radio team who manages all of these other aspects of the freedom podcasting, then I'm fine with it. For now, we're gonna push other people's businesses, promote other, especially freedom fighter owned businesses. I'm open to placing ads of businesses that are not owned by freedom fighters. I'm open to that, but we are going to put a badge some sort of like a check check badge on all the brands that we push, or the brands that we promote here on the show that are owned by freedom fighters. So you know, but closing the accounts, finding the clients is another. It's just part of work, but it takes away from the creative side. um, Sometimes I feel like all I want to do is put all of my energy, my time on the creative, on the production. But you can't, when you're one man producer, and you're also the talent, and you're also the editor and everything. You're also the businessman behind the operation. So you have to wear many hats: salesperson, manager, producer, talent. Well, that's the card that we're dealt with, and we're not complaining. I'm just explaining why we're not growing as fast as we we hope to on this platform. But with your prayers and with your support, we are going to progress much faster if everybody comes on board. So that's the idea. But if I prove that this really helped me, I'm gonna keep on taking it for another month or so. If it proves to be a very beneficial, healthy alternative coffee than what I take currently, I feel like I'm compelled to order some more from my mom. Ship boxes, maybe 15, 20, 30 boxes over, and for all our loyal uh, uh, supporters of the show, I'll send one for free in the mail. And see if people like it, then we'll consider if we can carry it on. We don't have e-commerce, we don't have a store, but we can just manually create some transaction for now, until such a time in the future that the Lord will bless us with a team, somebody who will manage an e-store or e-commerce for the Freedom Fighter Radio. Then we'll carry it as one of our products. But for now, I just felt a big difference in um, the acidity level of what you get from regular coffee is so high. I felt like this is like 80% less acidity. It doesn't cost me to burp so much. Today we are going to unpack a lot of how things transpired last night from the Freedom Roundtable, coast to coast to coast. You have to forgive me for going live with a massive headache. But we are going to roll with the punches. Don't go away. We'll be right back, folks. Imagine that the power grid was totally wiped by an EMP weapon of an enemy state. Your stress level will go to the roof. Your patience will be tried. You will have to think about both your own and your complaining children's survival. If you don't survive, your children won't when they are left on their own. Teach your children how to have the mentality of being survivors through a fun, children-friendly guided outdoor adventures with basic survivor mindfulness integrated in the fun outing activity. Call my friends Ornell and Victoria, who are experienced survivors. Call them at 905-252-8009 or email them at northernpacificcottages@gmail.com. A disturbing news. Doctors administer certain drugs even after the family have rejected it. Why? Because hospitals can charge $3,000 a pop for it. Meanwhile, they hid the fact that cheaper alternatives are available and it only costs cents. Do you know if you are paying the right price for your current prescription? Have you researched if there are cheaper yet equally effective alternatives? Call Shinlaza Pharmaceuticals at 1-800-206-0051 or email at info@shinlaza.com for a free consultation. Shinlaza Pharmaceuticals is owned and operated by a freedom fighter of the Freedom Community in Ontario. A disturbing news. Doctors administer certain drugs even after the family have rejected it. Why? Because hospitals can charge we have a brand new podcast in collaboration with one of our very important collaborators. So, without much further ado, I would like to introduce our main collaborator for a brand new podcast, Enemies of the State, the New World Order. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Doru Gordon.
Yes, and to put it simply, the recipe is always there. Create a crisis. You have to present there is a crisis in society. In order for the state to go bigger and to grow, you always have to threaten people or to instill fear. You have to be fearful of greedy capitalists or the greedy businessman who wants to take money away from you.
Cafe Freedom. And I'm your host, Ordinary Joe, coming to you live. The heart of the great white north, the heart of the true north, strong and free. Cafe Freedom here on the Ordinary Joe Show. Like I said, usually, or we are going to use this Cafe Freedom as our news magazine style programming. But today we are going to go a little bit on the serious side because there's so much to unpack with the Freedom Roundtable podcast that happened last night. And for the next coming days, we are going to do this. So, yes, we are live on limited channels right now. We're not live on the mainstream ones. We're off Facebook, we're off YouTube and Twitter right at this moment. So essentially, this is pre-recording so that I can do a little bit of editing and just allow myself to speak freely right now. But when we post clips of this on the censored platforms, then I can choose the parts that don't need to be that we know will be censored anyway. So we're not gonna put it up there. uh I opened this episode telling everybody, look at my backdrop, it looks different from the usual Cafe Freedom backdrop. That's because YouTube deleted our Freedom Fighter Radio channel. It had 2 strikes already. I tried to contest the strikes because the word COVID and vaccines were mentioned. Usually when I do the monologue, I'm pretty careful to use code words, but when I have a guest on, they just go ramble it out. Those words that are buzzwords for these platforms, they pick up on the words and then they start dissecting or you know, putting a magnifying glass on the content of the show. And so just yesterday, about when I was about to start the roundtable podcast, and I wanted to put our skyline, I cannot find it because I put it on the YouTube channel and then I Chromecast it on the big TV. So essentially, it becomes the backdrop for our show. Yesterday, I couldn't find it. I have to scramble 15 minutes before the show started to upload the lower resolution version so that we can have something as a backdrop last night. So there you go. I found out that they just deleted the YouTube channel. And I already experienced at least twice on Facebook having a channel and a profile just out of the blue got deleted because of the censored speech that we share. don't want to censor myself. So this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna do this pre-recording, limited broadcasts that can touch very few people on private groups and secret channels. And we're relatively new on Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute, so we don't expect these brand new platforms, we only have like less than 500, I believe, in Rumble, or almost 500 on Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute and all these free speech platform channels that we use. Uh, we're not big on those yet. They are relatively brand new channels. So because that is the nature of where we are, we are we're not expecting live audiences, and it doesn't integrate anyways on StreamYard, the comments and the view counts. Um, so I can see that very tiny view counts on private Facebook groups. So we're not on public broadcast on Facebook. I have a small private Facebook group with very few select individuals that join the private group who are tuning in right now. So have patience, folks. This is I'm treating this as a pre-recording. So if I'm not watching myself too much, now I'm just kind of happy-go-lucky kind of broadcasting right now. It's just because I'm treating this as a pre-recording, which I will edit before I post it on the other censored platforms. Anyways, like I said, even though this is supposed to be fun freedom podcast for specifically for today, we're gonna go a little deep into the topics of globalism and the technocracy rising in our societies as being pushed by the global elites and the internationalist um, bodies. So we had five guests last night. It's supposed to be six. One of the firefighters for Truth co-founder was not able to make it because of family situation. So we're going to try and have Mike Anjosco join us again in the future. But let's check some. I have five clips here that we are going to use for this specific pre-recording. I'm supposed. What time is it? I'm supposed to have another pre-recording. That one's totally off live with another podcaster who wants to guest on my show. But we are gonna pre-record that, so I have to get off live here from uh, quarter to 11. Okay, so last night our guests were Catherine Kovalchuk from Lawyers for Truth. There was Dana Metcalf, who's one of the organizers of Freedom Convoy from the east side of Canada, and she also hosts her own podcast, the Raven News Podcast. We have the podcast host of Veterans for Freedom, a founding member of Veterans for Freedom, Mr. Jeff Evely, participated in our show last night. The host of the Atlantic Underground podcast, our British Canadian host, Chris Smith, was one of the panelists, and semi permanent panelist on the show, Dory Gordon, who is very deep in history and social sciences. I believe he has a PhD on political science himself, and a Christian brother in Christ. Uh, I value Doru's insight very much. Um, Although I can see some of the panelists are sometimes irritated, I guess, annoyed by his very vocal, outspoken profess professing his faith and devotion to our Lord, and that's how he sees political science from the lens of a Christian freedom fighter. I'm a big admirer of Doru Gordon, and that's why I have an open invitation for him to join the panel anytime he wants, the Freedom Roundtable anytime he wants. He is welcome. I extended the same invitation to a couple of other people. It's just that they're not always available, but Doru is usually available. So it's not only Dory that I gave the open invitation to, but he's the one who's willing to come on. And I think he does bring a lot of value on the roundtable podcast. See, uh, before we get to some of the snippets, I'd like to explain to our listeners and our viewers of the Freedom Roundtable is that what I want to accomplish is get at least 3 or 4 permanent expert witnesses, uh, what we might hopefully call our resident panelists, who will be sort of the opening and the ending. They will participate in the roundtable, but we want to make room for other uh, freedom voices from coast to coast to coast across Canada, all the way to Newfoundland in the east, and all the way to British Columbia in the west, and Northern Territories, if possible, as well. But we have 6 slots, 6 seats. Every Freedom Round Table. But what I want to do is have at least 3 or 4 uh, resident panelists who will take turns in getting to the what this is what we call the main stage, right? And I can always put them on the backstage until kind of like switch them up, and but give a lot of time to the freedom fighters. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling here, but let's get started unpacking some of the short segments from last night. Let's start with some of their opening statements. Let's start with the opening statement of founder of Lawyers for Truth, Catherine Kowalchuk, after I asked her to give an opening statement and weigh in on the situation of our country being infiltrated by internationalist forces. And let me take off my frame so that we can show her. All right. There, Janes and Joe Canadians, when our governments are signing us into treaties and agreements with non-nation states such as the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, World Health Organization, all of these internationalist um, organizations, and there's many of them. WEF is front and center right now, but we have the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, and many of them influencing. From a lawyer's perspective, are all these legal when it doesn't go through the parliament, in your opinion?
Well, I think Canada does, like the executive and the bureaucracy do have a certain ability, of course, to.
All right, folks, I'm just gonna apologize. This keeps on happening whenever I share videos. Let me rewind that from the beginning, because that's really annoying me. I think when I have multiple videos on queue, I'm gonna take off the other videos that I want to share and discuss with you. I'm gonna take it off right now, and I'm gonna rewind Catherine from the very beginning, because I'm quite annoyed, especially when we have the entire freedom panel or the roundtable participants, and all of these video presentation are just freezing up on us. I find that very annoying. So let me rewind that from the very beginning, and let's see if it works this time, now that I have taken out all the other videos on queue. And I'm kind of slouching here because I don't have a very good chair here. It's very, very slippery. Let's try this again. As ordinary Janes and Joe Canadians, when our governments are signing us into treaties and agreements with non-nation states such as the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, World Health Organization, all of these internationalist um, organizations, and there's many of them. WEF is front and center right now, but we have the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, and many of them influencing. From a lawyer's perspective, are all these legal when it doesn't go through the parliament, in your opinion?
Well, I think Canada does, like the executive and the bureaucracy do have a certain ability, of course, to sign contracts. You know, you can't bring every piece of business to the parliament or the legislature or to the citizens on every single level. But for something that is so crucial for affiliations with organizations that usurp the sovereignty and the ability for Canadians to weigh in on whether or not an affiliation such as that is appropriate. I believe that those matters need to be brought to Parliament and need to be discussed nationally and also at the local level, because as we know, by virtue of our participation in these organizations, we are bound to, I guess, a certain extent, what um, the document that the governing document that binds that organization. So I'm certainly, I was just posting the other day that certainly these sorts of affiliations need to come to Canadians, and we need to be able to have a debate on it. We need to understand the cost benefit analysis of why Canada would join in this sort of international organization. And so, but when Canada um, does sign on to these agreements, by and large, I think there's an expectation that we're going to go along with that organization. But at the end of the day, it's certainly up to Canadians to determine how they participate.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. I said so many things there. Thank God that thank God, Michelle, that you give me heads up there. I said so many things there, but I was muted. What was I saying? Okay, I was just saying that it's kind of weird that in Canada we don't call lawyers attorney, because my dad's a lawyer, and in the Philippines we call lawyers attorney, just like how you are. Even if you're in a casual meeting and you know the person is a doctor in Canada, you call them doc or doctor, right? In Canada, I don't know, the lawyers are called barristers and solicitors, but I don't think you use that as a pronoun or as an address, like a sir or a madam, or you professors, you call them hey prof, right? Hey prof, professor. A doctor, you call them a doctor. Lawyers in Canada, you call them hey solicitor or a barrister. I don't think that's used as an address. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's kind of weird for me to call Catherine as just Catherine instead of attorney. Attorney Kowalchuk. In the Philippines, we would say attorney, and that's how, you know. Whenever I was surrounded with lawyers, with attorneys, because I used to work for my dad, who runs a law firm with other lawyers. I call them attorneys, but here I call Catherine Catherine. Anyways, she is a lawyer, and she's the founder of Lawyers for Truth from Calgary, and she has many lawyers within her organization, which is a freedom fighting, dissenting, a group of lawyers. Um, when I was playing her snippet here, which I already said, right after I play her snippet, I have to unmute myself and then start talking. But because I have very little sleep, I forget things that I already told myself, which is important. Still forget it. But when I was playing her clip, I remembered that yesterday there was a very important clip that would have been perfect supplementary to what she was saying on her segment. But because there's so many things going on yesterday, there's so many things I'm forgetting to cue in. So I'll play that special clip for you right now since I missed it yesterday. Let me get it for you. It's right here. Okay. So basically, what this is, Catherine was talking about. She feels like if signing to a treaty or signing up and forming partnership or entering to a relationship as Canada, as our elected representatives that we voted into position, the government in power before they sign into the WEF for the Trilateral Commission and the CFR and the Club of Rome and many of these internationalist organization, that because it affects so much the basically our political culture and our political even the policies, when so a good example is signing up on the Paris Accord or the environmental treaties and all that. That should have, and this is what I understand what Catherine was saying, and I concur and I agree that something that affects our daily lives as ordinary Jane and Joe Canadians, before our government sign into any of these internationalist agenda, I think there should be some, either it goes through debate through parliament, the parliamentary system, or have a referendum on these matters. So, she was explaining, like many of you already heard just before I got muted. She was explaining that that's why it's good to pre-record this so I can edit it out, the dead spot there. She explaining that the executive branch of the government cannot run by the parliament or the citizens of the country every time there's, you know minor items of business, but something that is major, such as signing up with the WEF, with their Agile Nations agenda, or the World Health Organization's pandemic response agenda, which will essentially shut down our own. We don't even have anything in existence as a Canadian pandemic response. If another pandemic in the future happens, we don't have our own Canadian pandemic response. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization wants to already push in their agenda to override nation states, sovereign nations' own pandemic responses for future pandemics. We haven't even formed ours; they're already shutting it down. And to her point, she was saying that, you know if I can just play, let me play a small portion of what she was saying here at the very end.
Be able to have a debate on it. We need to understand the cost benefit analysis, the document that the governing document that binds that organization. So I'm certainly, I was just posting the other day that certainly these sorts of affiliations need to come to Canadians, and we need to be able to have a debate on it. We need to understand the cost benefit analysis of why Canada would join in this sort of international organization. And so, but when Canada does make does sign on to these agreements, by and large, I think there's an expectation that we're going to go along with that organization. But at the end of the day, it's certainly up to Canadians to determine how they participate.
And my original question even goes beyond the way Catherine answered my question. I think how she understood my question is, whenever we're signing in to be a part or to join these organizations, is that there needs to be some sort of consultation or it goes through parliamentary process. I'm even talking beyond just joining. I'm talking about every document and every new program that is being introduced to our government by organizations that we're already signed in. We know that the Liberal government, the government of Canada, which is the Liberal Party in power right now, we know that they are signed into the WEF, and just because there is an agreement between Canada and the World Economic Forum, does that mean, and that I should have clarified my question, does that mean that because there is that umbilical cord that was already ratified by or agreement signed between our Canadian government and the World Economic Forum, that anytime the World Economic Forum devising new programs and coming up with new concepts, can they just anytime just bring it to Canada and say, okay, we want you to implement that now since you're part of the WEF? Well, that's a top down, internationalist, technocratic tyranny. I don't agree with that. So, to clarify my question, should there be a parliamentary procedure or at least a referendum to consult the citizens of Canada if they want to be signed in, not only to sign in as a partner, but every document and every program before it's pushed from whatever organization we're talking about, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization. We're part of that. The UNESCO and the UNICEF and the NORAD and the North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTAs, and all these international cabal or organizations. Just because we have a partnership with them, can they just continuously push agendas and programs into Canada without any oversight? It's bad enough that we are signed into this organization without the people's approval. But on top of that, since there's an umbilical cord that is already attaching our government to these organizations, that this umbilical cord is used as a channel to push their internationalist agenda into our country. I think every agenda, every document, every program, every idea, every concept that these think tanks, basically they are think tanks. The World Economic Forum is not really, it's a think tank. It's supposed to be a place where people have conversations, not a place where doctrines and dogmas and policies are crafted and pushed to their member states. I don't think the World Economic Forum should function that way. So I should have clarified my question, but I think Catherine answered my question very, very thoroughly according to how she understood my question. But beyond that understanding of question, it's really for me, even if we already have that relationship with these think tanks, I don't think that they can just continuously pour in programs and ideas and programs or mandates or policies without oversight or without people's approval. That is just a hijacking of our government, supposed to be composed by elected representatives. None of these uh, unelected bureaucrats are elected representatives that were put by the people into power to decide for themselves. And yesterday, I closed the entire episode by talking about how we don't want to get rid of the political, um, the elected represent, the government that are composed of elected representatives, anyways, because the technocrats also wants to do away with that, and most freedom fighters who do not look beyond the surface will be duped and will be deceived into agreeing and also being a force into eliminating elected representatives in our government because of, it's going to be a ropey dope where we are we are all aware of the corruption that's going on. And so because uh, it could be a psyop where, you know our awareness of the corruption will motivate many of the members of the freedom community to help the technocrats, to help the community of technocrats. We might be useful idiots to their agenda to eradicate and eliminate elective representatives in our government. The technocrats don't want politicians. And I know that we find politicians detestable, but I don't think we should eradicate or eliminate elected. We have to clean house. We have to replace them. We have to change the political culture. But do we throw the baby with the bathwater? Do we throw the entire system altogether because there are so many corrupt politicians in the government? We have to replace all of those political corrupt politicians and eradicate the corrupt political culture. I think is the goal, but not to destroy the entire structure. And I would associate that also with the idea of defunding the police. I don't I don't think we should join the BLMs singing in their choir or singing their chorus on defunding the police. And because of the tribal nature of our us versus them, the division in our society where, we don't have any sort of cooperation with the other side of the political spectrum. When they say defund the police, we don't agree with defund the police. However, we I think it is quite reasonable to say to reform the police and fund the police more so that we can eradicate all the corrupted members of the police forces in all the world and increase the funds so that the police forces can hire better police um, members of the police community. So I don't sing the same chorus as defund the police, but I think we have to say reform the police because the police has been weaponized to be the jackboots against dissidents, against reasonable, leave me alone, ordinary Jane and Joe citizens saying, we just want to live our lives, not to be always be coerced and lorded over by the overlords of the government. We have to, you know, and the governments have weaponized the police to be the jackboots to herd us into submission and coerce us into compliance. So we cannot just leave the police forces the way it is in the status quo of policing culture, the power of the police unions, and all that. We, uh, as much as we don't sing the chorus of defund the police, we should not leave the status quo as it is. We have to be actively speaking out against the corruption in the police forces. They are the jackboots. They are the ones that are tools of the weaponized tools of the government to silence dissent. We've seen that time and time and time and time again. We cannot turn a blind eye that there is so much corruption in policing culture in North American societies. So I kind of went down not not exactly a tangent, but I went too far away from the root of our conversation. I think. Oh yeah, I was talking about. Okay, so back to Catherine Kovalchuk. She was saying that there needs to be some sort of parliamentary procedure or debate certain some of these items of contention should be at least debated in the parliaments. I totally agree with that. I need some water. Um, but like what I was saying, um, I totally forgot to. Well, let me present it to you right now because I totally forgot to play this particular clip, which is very in line with what she's saying, because this is now what I'm about to show you is evidence of infiltration, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But in my opinion, this is evidence of infiltration and corruption in the highest level of our government, who's silencing even reasonable questions about these international think tanks. So here it is. I hope it plays properly.
Speaker, and I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has quoted infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know he was. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad, and the video is really bad as well.
No, it wasn't bad. The audio wasn't bad. The video wasn't bad. We can hear the audio properly. This particular Speaker of the House is another clip with Leslie Lewis. He's trying to cheat the procedures. Even Leslie Lewis is supposed to have a follow up, and she pretends that he miscounts their turns. This speaker is just very much corrupted. And did you hear any corruption in the voice? It pretends that it's corrupted, so he cuts him off. He cuts the person off, asking a very important question. You know why? Well, listen to what happened next after he cut the very reasonable question about Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum's infiltration of our country. This is what happened. He actually just cut the guy off to allow for what happened next.
And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay, let's try again. The honorable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, that member was promoting open disinformation. That's not debate. We have to call out disinformation.
We'll get into debate again.
Okay, so he cut off the MP who was asking a very reasonable question about Klaus Schwab's claim of infiltrating the cabinets, half of a cabinet of Trudeau is for us. Is the bugs. As Klaus Schwab. How could that be conspiracy theory, or what the opposing MP was saying? This is blatant disinformation when it is Klaus Schwab himself on video, on record, saying exactly what the member of parliament was just asking a question. Who exactly in the parliament building, who exactly are members of parliament in the Canadian legislature, are part of the WEF, working for the WEF, when Klaus Schwab himself has claimed it, that half of Justin Trudeau's cabinet are working for the WEF. That's what he said. And where did he got this audacity to say that it is a blatant misinformation, and the speaker just let it happen? The speaker didn't even, and that is full display of how corrupted our Canadian legislature had become. All right, we got I have a pre-recording that's coming up in about 15 minutes, but let's let me go back to, let's play another. Where are all my stuff? Wait, give me a second, folks. Let's play another segment, another clip from last night. But I just can't find where it is. Okay, let's go back there. Ready to post. Okay, here. Who should we pick? There, I have 4. We only have time to play one more. Let's go to Toru. Okay.
Story is like anvil and a hammer. Whatever metal goes through it gets bended. But when Jesus Christ came into the world, he broke the anvil and the hammer. When I heard Klaus Schwab saying that we are the world leaders and now we are becoming the world shapers, we're going to have to give him the bad news. One guy before him, named Hitler, he said the same. He said he's going to make a Reich that's going to be lasting for 1,000 years. Hitler was sworn in as a chancellor in January 30th, 1933, and in the fall became Führer. And he said, I will create a Reich for 1,000 years. So this is nothing new with these cooks. You know, they believe they're going to shape history. They're in control. They have power. and the globalist movement is going to envelop the entire world.
Mhm.
The problem they have is that they don't want to learn from history, and obviously they're not Christians. If they will be Christians, they know we are sinners. We're not going to be able to create a global world order without Christ. It's impossible because that's our nature. So what I'm saying to Klaus Schwab and all the others, hold your horses. History is gonna throw you to the bin because it's where you belong. So we've seen that before. And I remember our dictator in communist Romania in November 1989. He came in front of the country. He had the Congress of the Communist Party in Romania, all the big shots in the room. He starts saying, he said this: there are here in this room and in this country that still believe that we're gonna go back to the old ways. Let me tell them that we will never ever go back to the old ways. 1 month later, he was shot dead by the firing squad. So what I'm getting is this. I know it seems that we're losing on all fronts, but actually we're winning on all fronts. When our prime minister, so-called prime minister, is not mine, so I don't know whose prime minister is this, but it's not mine. Anyhow, he said this: now it's a moment for a reset to Canada. They have to reset everything. Yes, He was right. He actually was right. Because up till that point, Canada was moving toward a tyrannical state, where the state was the solution. Everything is for the state, through the state, and nothing against the state. Whereas from that point on, the freedom movement started growing like a rocket, you know? So he was right. It's going to be a reset, but for freedom, not for the state. He sees it on the other side of the things, you know? So I guess we are on the right track. Look, like many wonderful people like yourself, Canadians that really see exactly what's going on. Because I've seen so many Canadians when I was campaigning for MPP in Ontario. I saw lots of Canadians, they have no clue what's going on. But all of a sudden, they start realizing something is not good. Something is bad. So our way of life, our traditions are basically disappearing. And then it's very important to fight to keep them. There is one key, and I told everyone, the votes can be used in two ways, as an arrow or as a shield. And I always tell them, we have to use in Canada our votes as shields to protect what we have. The leftists, they use their votes as arrows to destroy what we have. They hate this country. It's true. They admitted it. They say it's systemic racist, it's colonialist, it's white supremacist, and all these adjectives. They hate it. We have to go back and fight for it. So I guess we're going to win.
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself there again. That's kind of very, very positive. Um, what's the word? Optimist, a very optimistic point of view from Dory Gordon. And I noticed that, some of the panelists, and this is not the first time, but every time I have Doru on, there are members of the round table who looks like they're annoyed and irritated every time I allow Doru to just speak. But I think that's just the unholy spirit that gets irritated when the truth is being spoken. And I think, I don't think Doru is looking for debate every time he shares his perspective. His political perspective is always through the lens of scripture, because he he was born and he grew up from behind the Iron Curtain. He had experienced how it is like to be under the jackboots or under the heavy hand of tyrannical dictators almost all his life. But he's also Christian. So he will speak according to his conviction and his experience and his knowledge. Nobody can take that away from him. But understandably, some people are annoyed because either one of two things. It's either they think that Dory is trying to proselytize or trying to preach on them to convert them. I don't think that's what Dory is trying to do. He's trying to expose the truth, the dynamics behind what's happening in our society as taught in lessons of history and in other places. And so, like I said to the members of the Freedom Table, Round Table, I'm gonna be the moderator, even though I myself is a devout Christian and I have a I have a Christian podcast. I'm going to put on the hat whenever I'm hosting the Freedom Roundtable. I'll put on the hat of a moderator, even though I favor one point over the other. I will not uh, get involved in bringing my opinion as much as possible, within reason. But be a moderator by allowing everybody to have a fair chance to be heard. So that's what I did last night. So that's why I'm only sharing my thoughts now, day after, on what I thought. Because every time Doru, because he's outspoken about his faith, and I am too when I'm doing my monologues in other shows, not as much on the Freedom Roundtable, so that I could stay neutral and be an effective moderator. Um, because Doru is outspoken, there's always the tendency that it leads to it leads to a situation that there's debate, and that almost happened last night. But I felt like to stay neutral. I cannot be neutral because my faith dictates my faith. I cannot deny my faith. I cannot deny my belief. It's just a matter of uh, temporarily staying neutral for the sake of moderating. But I cannot deny my faith. I cannot deny what I believe. But I'm not on a round table like last night. I'm not one of the participants. I'm somewhat participating, but I'm sort of the referee. That was my main role on roundtable podcast like that. Sorry, folks, I'm just sort of drifting away. I've been up all night. But let me close with this. I was trying to convey. I was trying to clarify to all the participants last night. Take away the emotions on the conversation or the argument or the debate. And it's in this round table, it has my goal is to make it a friendly debate. That the conversation has to play out. The argument has to play out, but without having personal attacks or um you know people can be passionate about what they believe, and but without having to resort to personal attacks or creating damage in relationship. As a moderator, my goal is to let these arguments and conversation play out and moderated to happen in such a fashion that you know it's productive, constructive, without having to resort into personal attacks. That's my goal. And so I kind of try and to level the playing field. I threw out a rhetorical question, not a question, but to capture the understanding of what we were talking about. I said, if we just take out the emotion away from the debate or the argument, and let's just look at data or just look at logic. Let's just stay logical, and regardless if you are sharing my faith or not, but let's all, whether you are Christian or not Christian, let's all just look at all of these from the perspective of logical argument. And what I was trying to convey last night was, even if you don't believe in God, wouldn't it be beneficial for our freedom community, our freedom movement, to acknowledge that our rights were given by God? Because what is the alternative? The alternative is that if we don't acknowledge that our rights and freedom were God given, that we were born with it, the alternative is the new theocracy. And again, I love people, I love atheists, but I will attack the argument, not the person. I will attack the atheism is, an ideology which is an oxymoron, because atheists are saying, the reason they're atheists is they don't believe in a god or in a religion, but atheism itself has become a god and has become a religion. So, I respect every person who claims to be an atheist, but I don't have respect for atheism. So I'm trying to carry myself in such a fashion that everybody understand that, uh, if you're an atheist, I respect you, I love you, I honor you, and I attack the atheism. Just as much as we love everybody, the Lord says to love everyone, the LGBT, even this drag queen, but we cannot condone the grooming that the drag queen storytellers are doing. It doesn't mean that we are told to love our neighbors. And yes, the drag queen storytellers are our neighbors and we should love them, but it doesn't mean we embrace or love their propaganda. We reject their propaganda. We reject their lifestyle. We reject their agenda in grooming our little children. We reject that with a passion. But you know, we we ac- we accept the person as a person, and we love the person as a person, to and have a desire to lead them away from their wicked ways. That's the idea. And so whenever I'm faced with an atheist, like, special, and most of the time, people that I like, pe- uh, most of the time when I'm in front of an atheist, the person is someone I admire and I like, other than the atheism that they are espousing. So last night I was trying to convey, let's take out the emotion and the passion and the feeling about this argument, and let's just focus on the merits of the argument. As a freedom fighter, wouldn't it be beneficial for all of us freedom advocates to acknowledge that our rights and freedoms are God given? Because what is the alternative if we don't acknowledge that it is God's given? It's God's provision. So do we acknowledge then that it was given by the king or the monarchy, the crown, or the legislature gave us our rights and freedom, or is it the document? Is it the document of the Charter of Rights and Freedom, or the document of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution? Are those documents the one giving us our rights? What if people put amendments on those documents? Right? So I don't agree that our basic rights and freedoms are given by any document, any law, any legislation, any constitution, any person, any body, any entity. Because those that claims to provide the rights and freedoms to all Canadians, if they're the one who are the source of those rights and freedom, then they might have a claim that they can take it away or violate it because it's coming from them. Like I said, folks, this is essentially pre-recording, but I have a few live audience. Good morning, David. Good morning, Michelle. Yeah, I didn't expect that we have, because we're broadcasting in a private group as well. Good morning, David. Good morning, Joe. OJ Ordinary. I'll have to catch the rest later. Sure, no problem, brother. Book recommendations: Return of the God Hypothesis. 3 scientific discoveries that reveal the mind behind the universe by Stephen C. Mayer. Thank you for the recommendation, brother. I will check it out. So that was the contention I was giving yesterday. I'm just running out of time, folks, because I have another pre-recording off live that needs to happen soon. I haven't generated the link for our brother David just yet. I'm going to ask him if we can. I'm just really exhausted now, but I need to convey and clarify. There's more clips that we need to unpack from last night's episode. And so in the next coming Cafe Freedom, in the next few morning, we are supposed to only do 3 Cafe Freedoms a week, but we're gonna do as much as we can because there's so much to unpack from last night. So folks, don't go away. When I come back, I'm gonna last segment to close this show. Just because it's a seller's market, it does not mean that it's not a good time for you, the buyer, to get into your dream home. The seller's market presents a unique opportunity not available during the buyer's market. Find out for yourself. Get the professional advice of an experienced, honest, Christian freedom-loving real estate professional. Call my friend, our sister in the fight for freedom, Madam Cheryl Severance of Century 21 at 905-646-2121, or check out her website at cheryl-severance-c21.ca. Fund the truth. Fund the unacceptable fringe views of the Freedom Fighter radio broadcast. Go to patreon.com/OJTV Canada and also donate $3 per month and help us keep going and pushing back against the lies, the hate, and the fear-mongering of the legacy media. Patreon.com/OJTV Canada. Your $3 per month will help us set fire on the lies of the tyrants, the technocrats, and the internationalist social engineers. Patreon.com/OJTV Canada. Did you hear about the children's cough syrup shelf? They are mostly empty in the drugstores. Are you concerned? Do you feel the need to stockpile? As the world heads towards uncertainty, with every nation meeting its own challenges, Larks Medical are staged and ready to respond. Go to larksmedical.com. Provide them with your name, phone number, and email, and Larks will respond at their earliest possible availability to find solutions and ensure ample supply for your needs. Or email them directly at info@larksmedical.com. That's info@larksmedical.com.
I'm Pastor Arthur from Calgary, the leader of the Independence Party of Alberta. You are listening to the Freedom Fighter Radio Worldwide podcast, only here on the Ordinary Joe Show.
Immediately out! Immediately go out and don't come back!
segment on our Cafe Freedom broadcast this morning. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. It's 11:04 a.m. Oh, I'm late for my pre-recording. So I'm going to have to say goodbye here, folks. But tune in every morning. We won't be going live on the main stream platforms, but we will be live on the free speech platforms such as Rumble, Odyssey, quick instant update or instant upload to BitChute and Brighteon. We're temporarily off Gab TV, but the clips on this live shows will be uploaded to the mainstream platforms, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook a little later on this week, because I need to edit them and not include any of the buzzwords that these platforms are allergic to. So please tune in. It'll be most likely every morning this week. Normally Cafe Freedom is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but this particular week we are going to do every morning to catch up, also because of March break. We missed a lot of there's a lot of holes last week, so we're gonna catch up on our Cafe Freedom. And again, after we unpack all of these serious stuff about what transpired in the Freedom Roundtable broadcast last night, then we will go back to default, which is all of our other fun stuff. This is the fun side of Freedom Podcasting. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. This has been Cafe Freedom right here on the Ordinary Joe. And I'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you all. Share. Send us some stars. Send us some love. Fund the truth. Subscribe to our Patreon. Right there on the ticker tape on the bottom, you'll see patreon.com/OJTV Canada. You can pledge $1.50, $2, $3, $5, $10, whatever it is comfortable for you, to continue and auto donate monthly on our Patreon. Or you can send us one-time gifts at fundojtv@gmail.com. Again, look at the there you go, at the ticker tape. On the bottom, you can see the many ways supporting us. Also, join our mailing list at www.ojtv.ca right there. And use the freedom code #FFRadioApp to receive notification by email every time we come on live, and get the free link to the free download of our Freedom Fighter Radio app. Patreon.com/OJTV Canada is where you support us monthly. Support us one time at fundojtv@gmail.com, and be a part of our mailing list at www.ojtv.ca. God bless you all. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.